Hi, everyone. I wanted to share a book that I had the opportunity to read in one sitting, which I love when that happens. I had a flight and I packed this book. So I was so excited to read it and got some great recommendations. And it was certainly one that was so powerful to read in one sitting. I highly recommend this book. There's so many things to love about it, but I think I loved the most about it was just how real it was. Like all the characters, the small nuances of each of them really resonated in so many ways. There's so many entry points into this book for a reader. It's a story of acceptance. It's a story of family. It's a story of forgiveness. It's a story of hope. But I feel like no matter what your entry point is, the big idea for me and the takeaway was the power of story and how each of us is made up of many, many, many stories. And as we get to know our stories, past and present, and even begin to think of future, that we begin to truly understand who we are. And that to me was a really powerful message in the book. The characters, kids are going to love. Amara, the main character, is great. She's funny and she's persistent and she's quirky and interesting and loves sneakers. Her dad works for Nike, which is a really kind of fun twist to hear that part. And she's really close to her dad and wants to know him better. She's dying to go to New York City to meet his family and finds out some reasons of why she's never been there. And so she does get to go and to get to know more of that side of her story. And readers are going to enjoy joining her on the journey with her father to New York City while her mom stays home. Her mom's about to have a sibling for Amara and doesn't make the trip with them. I think this is a book kids are going to really stick with and think about and learn from in a lot of ways. There's a lot of lessons to be learned. I took notes while I read it. I've been thinking a lot about readers' notebooks. I'm hearing from teachers and kids, no matter where I go, that the reading, writing notebooks aren't working. Kids are finding them feeling like an assignment. They're not using them. If they are using them, they're not enjoying it. Teachers are having a hard time managing them. So I've started to really push myself to think about, especially in a narrative, if I'm going to use a notebook, when do I use it and why? And honestly, if I'm just reading a book for pleasure, I don't take notes on a book. Even with my book club book, sometimes I'll turn on a page. I own the book, so I can do that. So I guess there's times when I would. I've been thinking about when do I turn that page down? And I think it's when a couple reasons. One reason is when I think I'm onto something, and I'm not sure if I am. Sometimes I'll turn down that page to see like, oh, is that going to continue on or is it not? The other time is when like there's something I'd want to talk to another reader about because I know I'm going to come to book club and we're going to have this conversation. So I want to remember that part. So as I read this book on the plane, I did keep my iPad next to me and sort of began to take some notes. And the things that I noticed is I wrote a lot of notes around story. Every time that word came up, I began to notice this craft move and noticed how it was being woven throughout the story. And I felt like the power of story was going to be a big idea I'd want to talk to someone on. I had some things that I literally crossed off because they weren't really working for me. I had some characters I thought about, would I want to dig deeper in, but I really thought about the relationship of grandpa and dad. And in the end, I kept coming back to story. And so I kept noticing that pattern and taking notes showed me that. I think I ended with like, what would I want to talk with other people about? And I think my top was story and the real meaning of that to the characters and for myself. And this idea of the suitcase, which is threads throughout the book. It's an assignment from her teacher. And this idea of this suitcase and how it intersects with the power of story would be also interesting. I try to put on my other hat and think about something I don't typically do when I read, but a lot of readers I meet are, and thinking about inquiry and research. I think this has a lot of potential for kids to do some research and possibly creating a digital bin for them or having them create a digital bin. There's places she visits in New York City that I think would be interesting, people that are discussed figures in history from New York City that would be interesting. The author's note is beautiful. She gives a top 10 list of places to visit, which could be fun for kids to research and see why they think she picked that. And even the Suitcase project itself could be a fun thing for kids to think about together and to decide that. So I took no more than, maybe 2 pages of notes while I read. Definitely crossed things out, made connections between things. And I feel like I might connect some of these pictures below here so people can see what I did, but really thinking about our purpose and notes with kids. And that's something I'm going to start to share as I talk about books, especially books that would be read by kids who are keeping a reader's or a writer's notebook. Definitely a book not to miss.